Dear friends, as you settle into your cozy beds, letting your mind drift away from the worries of the day, I invite you to close your eyes and listen. Tonight, I have a story, a gentle love story told not to excite, but to inspire you to sleep with a peaceful heart and a quiet mind. For sometimes the best way to find rest is to drift into a world where love is simple, pure, and brings comfort like a warm blanket on a chilly night. Let me begin with a question. Have you ever wondered why, even after the longest, hardest days, a single loving thought can calm your racing mind? Tonight, let's explore that magic together. Once, in a small village nestled between rolling hills and whispering woods, lived a young woman named Amira. Amira was known for her kindness. She had a gentle smile and eyes that sparkled with hope. Every morning she would walk through her village, greeting every person she met with warmth, and every evening she would sit by her window, watching the stars as if searching for a story written just for her. Not far away in the same village was a young man named Elias. Elias was quiet, thoughtful, and often lost in his own world. He loved to tend to his garden, gently caring for each plant, believing that every living thing, no matter how small, deserved love. The two had seen each other many times but had never truly spoken. Amira would pass by Elias's garden, admiring the vibrant flowers, while Elias would glance up, catching her gentle smile before she vanished around the corner. Both of them, in their own way, longed for connection, but neither knew how to begin. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Amira heard a soft whimper coming from the woods. Curious and concerned, she followed the sound and found a small kitten, tangled in a bramble bush. Its fur was matted and its eyes wide with fear. Without thinking, Amira knelt down and began to free the kitten, speaking soothing words. But the kitten was frightened and scratched her arm in its panic. Still, Amira persisted, her hands gentle, her voice calm. Eventually, the kitten relaxed and she carried it home, cradling it against her heart. The next morning, as Amira walked through the village with the kitten in her arms, she passed Elias's garden. Elias noticed her bandaged arm and the kitten peeking out from her shawl. He approached her shyly at first and asked, "Are you all right?" Amira smiled, showing him the kitten. She was lost and scared, but she's safe now. Sometimes a little love is all it takes. Elias nodded, understanding more than he could say. "Would you like to bring her into the garden? I think she would like the flowers." And so, for the first time, Amira stepped into Elias's world. Together they watched as the kitten explored, pouncing on petals, chasing butterflies, and eventually curling up beneath a blooming rose bush. They talked at first about the kitten, then about their favorite flowers, their dreams, and the simple joys that filled their days. As days turned into weeks, Amira and Elias spent more time together. They tended the garden side by side, planted new seeds, and shared quiet moments beneath the shade of an old oak tree. The villagers watched with knowing smiles as a gentle love grew between them, one rooted in kindness and nurtured by small acts of care. But as in every story, challenges appeared. One summer, a great storm swept through the village. Fierce winds tore at the rooftops and heavy rain threatened to wash away Elias's beloved garden. Amira and Elias worked together through the night, protecting the most delicate plants, supporting each other with words of comfort and encouragement. They learned that love is not only found in easy times, but shines brightest when the world feels uncertain. When the storm passed, the garden was battered but not broken. Together they rebuilt, replanting what was lost and finding new beauty in unexpected places. Their love, once tender and cautious, became a source of strength for themselves and for everyone around them. The villagers noticed how Amira and Elias's love brought light even on the darkest days. Inspired, they began to help one another more, sharing food, laughter, and hope. The village became a place where no one felt alone, where everyone believed that kindness and love could weather any storm. One evening, as the sun painted the sky with soft pinks and golds, Amira and Elias sat beneath their favorite oak tree. The kitten, now a graceful cat, purred contentedly in Amira's lap. Elias took Amira's hand, and together, they watched the stars emerge, tiny promises of hope in the night sky. Elias spoke softly, "Do you ever wonder why we look at the stars when we need comfort?" Amira smiled, squeezing his hand. "Because they remind us that even in the darkness there is light. And sometimes, all we need is someone to hold our hand and look up with us." In that peaceful moment, surrounded by the garden they had saved and the love they had grown, Amira and Elias found a quiet happiness. They knew that life would bring storms and sunshine, but as long as they faced it together, there would always be peace in their hearts. Now, dear listener, as you lie in your bed, think of Amira and Elias. Think of the gentle power of kindness, the courage to reach out, and the peace that comes from loving and being loved. Let their story remind you that no matter what happened today, tomorrow is another chance to plant seeds of love and joy. Before you drift off to sleep, ask yourself, who brings you comfort? Whose smile makes your troubles feel lighter? And most importantly, how can you share a bit of your own kindness with the world? As the night wraps around you like a soft blanket, remember that love, simple, patient, and true, is the best lullaby of all. Let it carry you into your dreams, where gardens bloom and hearts are always at peace. Everyone, I know most of you have come here tonight in search of a gentle, soothing story, a story that will not only make your hearts a little lighter but also help you drift off into a sweet, restful sleep. So, let me invite you to settle in, get comfortable, and close your eyes if you'd like, as I share with you a personal love story, one that is not only about romance, but also about finding peace, hope, and inspiration in the quietest moments of our lives. Let's begin with a question. Have you ever noticed how the heart feels just a little softer at night? How, when the world grows quiet and the stars begin to peek out, our thoughts seem to wander to the people and memories that mean the most to us. It's as if the night wraps us in a gentle embrace, reminding us that love of all kinds lingers even in the silence. This is a story about such a night, and about a love that found me when I least expected it. Some years ago, I was living in a small town, tucked away between rolling hills and sleepy streams. I had just moved there for work, and though the countryside was beautiful, I often felt alone. My family was far away, my friends scattered across the country, and my evenings were spent in quiet solitude. But there was one thing about this little town that brought me comfort. Every evening as the sun set, the entire sky would be set ablaze with color, flaming oranges, soft purples, deep blues. I would take long walks through the winding roads, breathing in the cool air, letting the gentle sounds of crickets and distant laughter fill my heart. It was during one of these walks that my story truly began. It was a Tuesday evening, one of those days when the world feels just a bit heavier on your shoulders. I remember feeling tired, maybe a little sad, and I almost skipped my walk. But something pulled me outside into the twilight. As I wandered down a familiar path, I saw a figure sitting on a bench under an old oak tree, a woman with a book in her lap and a small, warm smile on her face. Her name was Clara. Clara and I exchanged a simple greeting. She had moved to town just a few weeks before, and like me, she was searching for a bit of peace in the quiet countryside. Over the weeks, our paths crossed again and again. Sometimes we would share a bench and a few quiet words. Other times we would simply nod in passing, both of us wrapped up in our own thoughts. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, a friendship grew. We talked about everything: the books we loved, the dreams we had, the little things that made us smile. We laughed at silly stories from our childhoods and shared our hopes for the future. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, I realized that my evening walks had changed. They were no longer about escaping loneliness. They were about finding connection. One evening near the end of summer, Clara and I sat together as the sun dipped below the hills. The sky was painted with the most beautiful shades of pink and gold. We sat in silence for a while, simply enjoying the moment. Then she turned to me and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be?" I thought about her question. For a long time I had felt lost, as though I was wandering without a map. But in that moment, sitting beside Clara, I felt something shift inside me. It was as if all the pieces of my heart had fallen quietly into place. I turned to her and nodded, unable to find the right words. That was the night our friendship blossomed into something more. Love, I've learned, doesn't always arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes, it slips quietly into your life, like a gentle breeze on a summer evening. Sometimes, love is a shared silence, a simple question, a smile that makes the world feel a little lighter. Our story unfolded in the gentle rhythm of small-town life. There were picnics by the river, rainy days spent reading together, and late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. We learned each other's favorite songs, comforted each other through hard days, and celebrated the little victories that made each day special. But it wasn't always easy. Like all relationships, ours had its challenges. There were misunderstandings, moments of doubt, and days when the world seemed determined to pull us apart. But through it all, we held on to the quiet certainty that we were better together than we were alone. One winter evening, as snow fell softly outside, Clara and I sat by the fire, wrapped in a warm blanket. She looked at me, her eyes shining in the flickering light, and said, "I never thought I'd find someone who made me feel so at home." And in that moment I realized something important. Love isn't just about passion or excitement. It's about finding someone who makes you feel safe, who listens to your worries, who makes even the ordinary days feel extraordinary. It's about building a life together, one small moment at a time. As the years went by, our love grew deeper. We made new friends, explored new places, and built a home filled with laughter and warmth. But no matter how busy life became, we always made time for our evening walks, just as we had in the beginning. Those walks became our ritual, a way to reconnect, to talk about our days, to remind ourselves of the simple joys that first brought us together. I want to share a memory with you, a memory that brings me peace even on the hardest days. One late summer evening, Clara and I sat under our favorite oak tree, watching the fireflies dance in the dark. The air was warm and the world felt quiet and safe. She leaned her head on my shoulder and whispered, "This is my favorite place in the world." In that moment, I understood that love is not just a feeling, but a place where you can rest, where you can let go of your worries, where you are truly known and truly accepted. Love is the gentle voice that tells you, you are enough. Tonight, as you close your eyes and drift off to sleep, I hope you can carry that feeling with you. Whether you are alone or with someone you love, remember that love is always present in the memories you cherish, the dreams you hold, and the quiet moments of peace that fill your heart before you sleep. If you ever feel lost or alone, remember that love can find you in the most unexpected places: a small town, a quiet evening, a chance encounter under an old oak tree. Sometimes all it takes is a simple hello, a shared smile, or the courage to open your heart to something new. So as you settle in for a sweet, restful night, let the story of Clara and me remind you that love is always within reach. It may not always look the way you expect, and it may not always arrive when you want it to. But it is patient, it is kind, and it has a way of finding you when you need it most. May your dreams tonight be filled with warmth, hope, and the gentle promise that love is never far away. And when you wake in the morning, may you carry that peace with you into the day, knowing that you are loved just as you are. Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I want you to take a deep breath. Really go ahead. In and out. Let your shoulders drop. I know it's been a long, stressful day. Maybe you woke up late. Maybe your boss sent that email with urgent in the subject line. Maybe you spilled coffee on your shirt or got stuck in traffic when all you wanted to do was get home. Whatever brought you here tonight, I'm glad you're here. Because tonight I want to tell you a few stories, emotional stories. Stories that I hope will help you feel less alone in your stress, and maybe even remind you of the strength and beauty that can be found in the messiest of days. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you were carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders only to have someone or something lighten the load for just a moment? Maybe it was a kind word from a stranger. Maybe it was a song on the radio that made you smile, or a memory that drifted into your mind when you needed it most. Tonight I want to share a few stories that show how emotion, raw, real emotion, can connect us, heal us, and sometimes even save us. Let's start with a story from my own life. A few years ago I was having one of those days. You know, the kind, the ones where everything seems to go wrong. I was juggling work deadlines, family responsibilities, and the never-ending to-do list. By the end of the day I was exhausted, frustrated, and feeling like I had nothing left to give. As I sat in my car in the driveway, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly woman who lives alone, struggling to bring her garbage cans back up the driveway. I almost pretended not to see her. I almost let my exhaustion win. But something inside me nudged me to get out of the car. I walked over and smiled, offering to help. She smiled back, her eyes lighting up. As we walked together, she told me about her late husband, about her garden, about her loneliness. And as I listened, really listened, I felt my own burdens lift. In helping her, I helped myself. I learned that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can be the most powerful antidote to stress, a reminder that we're all in this together. Why do I tell you this? Because emotional stories like Mrs. Jenkins and like yours are everywhere. They're in the people we pass on the street, in the colleagues we work with, in the family members we sometimes take for granted. And when we open ourselves up to these stories, we find connection. We find meaning. We find hope. Let me share another story, this one about a friend of mine named Alex. Now, Alex is the kind of person who always has a joke ready, always seems to have it together. But one day, after a particularly stressful day at work, Alex called me, his voice trembling. He said, "I'm not okay. I feel like I'm failing at everything." I was surprised. I'd never heard him sound so vulnerable. We talked for hours that night. I listened. He cried. And then, in the middle of his tears, he laughed. He said, "It feels good to say this out loud." That conversation taught me something important. We all wear masks, especially when we're stressed. We pretend we're fine when we're not. But when we share our emotional stories, we give others permission to do the same. We break down the walls between us. In the process, we find comfort, understanding, and sometimes the courage to keep going. Have you ever noticed how stories can change the way you feel? Think about the last time you watched a movie that made you cry or read a book that made you laugh out loud. Stories have a way of reaching inside us, touching the places we try to hide and reminding us that we are, in fact, deeply human. After a stressful day, a good story can be like a balm-a way to process what's happened, to see our own struggles reflected in someone else's journey, and to remember that no matter how tough things get, we're not alone. I remember another time not too long ago when I was waiting in line at the grocery store. The woman in front of me had a little boy with her, no more than 5 years old. He was clutching a small toy and he looked up at his mother and said, "Mom, I know you're tired. You can have my toy if it makes you happy." She smiled, tears in her eyes. Everyone in line saw it. In that small moment, I saw love, empathy, and the purest kind of generosity. That little boy reminded me that sometimes it's the simplest gestures that carry the deepest meaning. These everyday stories of kindness, vulnerability, and hope are all around us. They help us deal with stress by reminding us what really matters. They teach us to look beyond our own struggles, to reach out, to connect. And they remind us that even when life feels overwhelming, there is beauty to be found in the connections we make with others. So what's your story? What moments, big or small, have helped you get through a tough day? Have you ever been surprised by kindness or found strength when you least expected it? I want you to think about those moments. Hold on to them. Let them remind you that you're not alone, even on the hardest days. There's a reason we tell stories. Stories are how we make sense of the world, how we process our emotions, how we find meaning in the chaos. After a stressful day, it can be tempting to shut down, to retreat into ourselves. But I encourage you instead to reach out. Share your story with someone. Listen to someone else's story. You might be surprised by what you discover. Let me tell you about Sarah, a teacher I met last year. Sarah had just finished her first year of teaching and it had been a tough one. Her students came from difficult backgrounds and every day felt like an uphill battle. She told me about a student named Miguel who rarely spoke and always seemed angry. One day, after a particularly stressful week, Sarah found a note on her desk. It read, "Thank you for not giving up on me." That note changed everything for Sarah. It reminded her that even on the hardest days she was making a difference. It gave her the strength to keep going. We all have our own Sarah moments. Times when we wonder if what we're doing matters, if anyone notices, if we're really making a difference. Emotional stories like these remind us that, yes, we are. Sometimes all it takes is one person, one moment, one story to change everything. As we come to the end of this day and as you carry the stress of whatever you've been through, I want you to remember this. You are not alone. Your story matters. And the stories of those around you matter too. When we take the time to listen, to really listen, we find connection. We find hope. And we find the strength to keep moving forward even when the road is hard. So tonight, as you head home or settle in for the evening, I invite you to think about the stories that have touched your heart. The moments that have lifted you up when you were down. And maybe, just maybe, share your own story with someone who needs to hear it. Because in the sharing we find healing. In the listening we find understanding. And in the connection we find the courage to face another day. Thank you for listening. I hope these stories have helped ease the weight of your day even just a little. Remember, You are stronger than you think, and your story is more important than you know. Good night. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt fear so strong it made you want to run away? Maybe it was the first day at a new school. Maybe it was standing up for someone when everyone else stayed silent. Maybe it was facing a challenge you never thought you could overcome. Tonight I want to tell you a story. It's the story of courage. A personal story. My story. But I believe in some way it's also your story. Because each of us at some point faces a moment when we must choose. To let fear hold us back or to find the courage to step forward. Let me take you back to a time when courage was the last thing I thought I possessed. It was a chilly autumn morning. The kind where the sun struggles to break through gray clouds, and the air is filled with the sharp scent of fallen leaves. I was just 18. I had finished high school a few months before, and I was set to begin college in a new city far from home. My parents had always encouraged me to dream big, to chase after what made my heart race, but when the day finally came I was terrified. The city was enormous. The buildings seemed to touch the sky, and the people walked with a sense of purpose that made me feel invisible. I remember standing on the platform of the subway, my suitcase in hand, and wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. Could I really do this? Could I survive in this place where I knew no one and nothing felt familiar? Courage, I learned, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper. A quiet voice that says, "I'll try again tomorrow."